let's move on. Let's talk about some other stuff because I want to talk about this article that was done by Kotaku, man. Because we got to talk about this. We got to have a real conversation about this. And I'm going to pull up the version that's up now because you'll understand in just a second when I get into this. But Kotaku was catching heat, right? Kotaku was going to Kotaku, as he usually does. Every time I see Kotaku up on the little trending page on Twitter or anywhere else, I'm like, okay, what happened now? Like, what did Kotaku do now? Like, what's going on? What's its problem, right? So what we have is this article here. I'm going to move myself over to this side so you guys can see it. But basically, there was this article that was written by Zach Swason. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Zach Swason or Swason. That was about Alan Wake 2. It was about the new update that came out for all the different stuff and changes that they were doing for Alan Wake 2, I believe on every platform, if not also just specifically PlayStation. No, it's every platform. So Xbox, Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Not only did it fix a bunch of bugs and glitches and stuff, but it also added a couple extra accessibility features that includes stuff to really tone down and mess around and manipulate some of the flashes that come from the jump scares. So this could be like, some of the images that pop up, some of the flashing color, flashing lights, the sounds, for the different sounds that come up with the jump scares. There's a lot of different things that this can mess with. Now, the reason why this is relevant, okay, before we get into the actual article itself, the reason why this is relevant is because they were putting this in for accessibility features for people that might experience seizures or different things that might be related to that. That's a big deal for a lot of people, especially in the games industry where accessibility features are a big deal, right? So we come to this article. Now, I'm going to show you the original posting. Okay, check this out. Look at this headline. Okay, now the headline was this originally. Zach had wrote this article and pretty much was trying to be tongue-in-cheek, but it did not come off like that. And many people, including myself, when they read the article, saw just like how not right this was. Because it seemed like a jab to people that were going to be using these features, these accessibility features. And the way that it was presented was just to elicit a negative response from people, to jab at people to get rage from them. I mean, look at it. It says, new Alan Wake 2 update is for all you babies out there. This was the original posting on Twitter, right? Now, since then, I'm going to show you guys as well, okay? Since then, as you could see, they pulled down the original tweet when this article went up. This was after all the backlash that they had gotten from a bunch of different people. Not just myself, commenting on this, but a lot of game developers, a lot of media people, a lot of industry folk in general, a lot of Kotaku readers or people that just don't like Kotaku, obviously, but many different people in the audience and YouTubers, content creators that I saw, all commenting and jumping on Kotaku. And afterwards, what was it? If I could find it here, I gotta find it, see if I can type it out. But Zach Swason, here it is. I found it here where you guys could actually see it. Zach had issued an apology, okay, that came out after this, okay, after his article went out there. And there's a number of things about this. Number one, the biggest thing that I do have to say about this, if I'm being real, as someone that has a lot of experience writing articles about video games for now, at this point, 14 years that I've been part of the industry as a freelancer, as a writer, as a podcaster, all this stuff, right? I have a number of thoughts about an article like this. My biggest problem with it was that this article was in very poor taste. And it was done and got published, by the way. Got published, okay, after going through an editorial team, okay? When articles go up on Kotaku, people need to understand, they don't just get seen by one pair of eyes. It's not just the writer that writes this up and then it gets published. It doesn't work that way at websites, especially larger websites like Kotaku. It's a number of different people that see this. It could be the editors or a editor, because there's two people, the writer and the editor, that usually do this, or a number of editors. It could be also seen by the editor-in-chief, especially, by the way, after a negative response like what this article got, right? There's a number of people that actually see this article before it's published, okay? And while it's published, and to see the reaction, to see the traffic and stuff. So my problem is that stuff before the corrections was put out here, and all these other people were okay with it. Which to me, I read through the original version of the article and it was just jabbing at people that were going to use these features. There was no reason for this type of article to be written, let alone published for something like that. Because if something like this, if I was the editor-in-chief or if I was an editor at a website like Kotaku or any website for that matter, and I saw an article like that, it would instantly get thrown back to the writer and be like, yo, you need to fix this. you better rewrite this because we don't need to jab at our audience like that. We don't need to jab at people like that. Now, I'm coughing so much. Now, Zach and his apology. Let's go through this apology briefly. Now, I'm not trying to dogpile on Zach, but we need to address all of it and need to talk about it since it's part of the actual story here. And it's part of the actual thing that was the follow-through, the fallout from the actual article being published, right? So, Zach comes in here. He says, I fucked up. The Alan Wake 2 story was intended to be a lighthearted jab at folks who call themselves babies and can't play horror games. I didn't realize the update was also an accessibility feature. Obviously, that was a mistake on my part. Sorry, folks. My problem with this statement is that you knew exactly what this was because before writing the article, you could see all the different, features that come with an update, especially if Remedy Entertainment or any other publisher puts out that they're putting an update out there and it has certain things. And I'm pretty sure, I haven't seen it yet, but Remedy Entertainment or another publisher, if they're putting out accessibility features for their game, because it gets so much traction from that audience that really wants to see accessibility features for various different types of people, that's already going to be out there. So you already would see this type of stuff. So you can't use an argument, you make a statement saying that you don't know that this stuff is in there. Because if someone like me could easily find it, if someone out there that looked at this stuff, that reacted to your article, could have easily already known about this stuff prior to your article going out, there's no reason that you writing for Kotaku shouldn't be able to see this stuff. I mean, that's just a cold hard fact. That's not me trying to be a jerk. That's not me trying to dogpile or dunk on Kotaku or Kotaku writer. That's a fact, right? It continues here. The headline was never aimed at folks who use accessibility features in games. It was aimed at self-described weenies who hate scary games, and it's clear that the intent in the headline missed its target and ended up hitting a whole bunch of folks I never wanted to hurt. This is why people look over and read over editorial whenever it gets put out there before it gets published. Because I'm pretty sure, I would like to think someone else over at Kotaku that looked over your article, if someone did, okay, would have brought it up. Because it's common sense. Like, if I, again, immediately reading it from the very beginning of that original version of the article, because it's not the same now, okay? It's corrected. They even say that it's corrected here. But that original version of this article was clearly just like taking swipes at people. Even if you were trying to be jokey, even if you were trying to make fun of them a little bit, or take a little like joke or jab, but be self-deprecating at the same time, it really did not read like that, like at all. There's a way to write, there's a way to do that, to make it very clear, like, look, I'm joking with you, audience. I'm joking with you, reader. And whatever you say at that point, people go roll with it. And whatever comes from that, comes from that. But there's a way to do it that makes it very explicitly clear. And trust me, after reading that article, it was not clear like that at all. It felt like it was literally just trying to make statements and make insinuations or implications that was trying to take a jab at the audience. And I think everybody saw that for what it is. And it was not cool whatsoever. The actual thing continues, right? Anyway, I'm sorry and I'm genuinely happy more folks can now play Alan Wake 2, and in the future, I'll definitely be careful when discussing game updates that involve changes to flashing lights or quick cuts. The post is being tweaked, and once again, I'm sorry. One last thing, even though I apologize and explained what happened, I'm not expecting everyone to go, well, never mind, we're cool. Some folks will still be mad, and rightfully so, and they don't have to accept it. I completely understand that. There's a couple things about this. Okay, obviously, that's everybody's prerogative to accept an apology or not, but I want to focus more on a greater discussion here, not just about Zach's mess up here in Zach's editorial. This has been an ongoing issue for Kotaku for a long time now. This same exact scenarios, same exact thing for various different subjects. We saw this with the Call of Duty devs when they had an editorial that was basically making fun of them for going to Europe to actually do their work, and it was trying to insinuate something about them that was not true. We saw this also with the editorial about The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, when that game got leaked out. I mean, need I even say more about that? We also saw this when it happens with Hogwarts Legacy, like not that long ago, last year. All the editorials that Kotaku did about it that wasn't even really focused on the game, that was like really trying to make statements or make a painting of that game and that development team that wasn't accurate. Let alone everything else that came with that. The list, excuse me, the list goes on, and it continues, and it's been going on for years at Kotaku. That's the problem here. This is why at least one of the reasons, besides everything else with the accessibility stuff, that people reacted the way they did to this editorial and why Zach is apologizing here. I would hope and I would think that he got a stern talking to from somebody over there, because I find it very hard to believe that nobody else on the Kotaku editorial staff, let alone the editor-in-chief, right here, the editor-in-chief did not see this prior to it getting published, or before all the corrections, the original version of it, prior to it getting published. Like, I find that very hard to believe. Okay, look, here's even the correction. I'll read it to you guys. The post previously disregarded accessibility implications of this update. It has been updated to acknowledge those implications. Kotaku regrets the error. I'll tell you right now, the only reason why they kept this up is because of the traffic and stuff. But that original version of that article, I would have pulled it down. I would have issued a retraction and do an entirely different piece, because the way that I read that and the way that I saw that and everybody else did, it was not in good taste. It was poor. It was horribly written in the way that it was like trying to just jab at people. Because I don't believe that they didn't know about the accessibility features, but I also don't believe that there was very few people that looked at this thing, which I find to be a shame. I find that to be a real shame. But this goes back to my point, with some of the statements that he's made. This is not just an article issue for this one here. It's not just a Zach issue. It's a Kotaku issue. It's an ongoing issue with Kotaku as a media outlet, as an editorial outlet, one that writes news, one that writes op-eds and stuff, that they are constantly doing things that either take swipes at people or really try to elicit a negative response or rage-induced response from their audience, from their readers, from their viewers. And it needs to stop at some point, because I don't see a good ending to this that's been continuously going on. With all the rocky stuff, let's be real here, okay? Let's be real with your man JJ here, okay? With all the crazy stuff going on with various different outlets that have been closing down or have been letting staff go, that have been doing one thing or another that has not been good for the industry, like, that doesn't mean that places like Kotaku are exempt from it just because it's Kotaku. Like, it's a very weird time right now for various media outlets, for various journalism outlets, for various other places. There's been a lot of layoffs in our industry, not just in development, in many different places. And I feel like if this type of thing continues with Kotaku and this type of thing continues to linger, where the audience is going to really check out from Kotaku's editorial and Kotaku's content, let alone their written or video stuff that they got on YouTube, I feel like that type of thing is going to affect Kotaku as a website, because I'm pretty sure Geo Media has no problem like making cuts or doing things like they've already done in the past, which is, again, I don't like the way that happened. I never agree with like when certain things like that go down, but who's to say that something like that can't happen at Kotaku because of stuff like this, because of the response that they got, because also people will tune out from reading Kotaku. You can feel however you want about Kotaku as a website. Again, this is an ongoing thing for many years. People don't like this website because of stuff like this and other things. But real talk, if you want to see our industry do better, we got to have the real conversations. Like, look, I don't want to see people lose their jobs at Kotaku. I don't want to see people get affected by this because of things like this, or lose the audience because the audience feels like it's being constantly disrespected, or they're seeing things disrespect other aspects of video games and the industry. Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a writer, whoever it is, whether it's Zach, whether it's Luke Plunkett, whether it's Ethan Gosh, or any of those other people over there at Kotaku. I don't want to see them having to go out and make apologies and have to deal with the fallout of stuff like this. Nobody wants to see anybody lose like that. If you're someone that actually likes seeing people lose or get affected greatly like that, then you're part of the problem. Like, that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't do anything for the betterment of the industry, let alone the individuals involved. We want to see places like Kotaku included do good stuff that benefits games as a whole, benefits the hobby, benefits the individuals that are part of this hobby, benefits the people that are part of development. That's the type of stuff we want to see. Okay, this type of nonsense, I feel like, really needs to be nipped in the bud. They really need to, over there at Kotaku, need to have a real hard conversation with some of their editorial staff and find out what the real issue is. Because it's one thing to be opinionated. It's another thing to be a jerk with it. And there's another thing to be irresponsible with the platform that you have. Because I'm sorry, Zach, like, look, I get it. I accept your apology. I'm pretty sure other people might not, but I accept your apology. But let's be real here, okay? This should have never happened in the first place. This should have never gotten to this point in the first place. Like, if you want to write about the updates and you want to make a joke like that, there's a far better way to go about it. And there's a far more responsible way to make sure that it's clear what you do with your editorials and the type of audience that you're trying to reach and what you're trying to present to the audience. Because from what I saw there, it was not it. It was not good, and everybody else saw that it was not good. It was a real bad look for Kotaku, and it did not help their perception in the eyes of many people. So it is what it is, but take it or leave it. Let me know some of your thoughts about this stuff with Kotaku, Alan Wake 2 article in the comment section down below. Do you agree with what I'm saying, or do you disagree? Do you feel like Kotaku is beyond redemption or saving or whatever else? Or do you feel like, like some things could be changed over there to make it better, so that way stuff like this doesn't happen again? Because, again, I don't want to see people who are getting made fun of because of accessibility features. Just like I don't want to see a writer get dogged on and dogpiled on over social media because of something like this. Like, it sucks. Like, it's not fun to talk about. Like, it happens. You have to... Damn, the coughing. You have to acknowledge it. It's part of the issue, but that's the thing. Like, nobody wants to be happy about this.